But this is not a smart, strategic move on Russia's part. And what Russia has now done is not only committed its own troops into a situation in which the overwhelming majority of the Syrian population sees it now as an enemy, but the Sunni population throughout the Middle East is going to see it as a supporter, an endorser, of those barrel bombs landing on kids at a time. When Russia has a significant Muslim population inside of its own borders that it needs to worry about. So I want Russia to be successful. This is not a contest between the United States and Russia. It is in our interest for Russia to be a responsible, effective actor on the international stage that can share burdens with us, along with China, along with Europe. Along with Japan, along with other countries because the problems we have are big. So I'm hopeful that Mr. Putin, having made this doubling down of the support he has provided to Mr. Assad, recognizes that this is not going to be a good long term. Strategy and that he works instead to bring about a political settlement. Just as I hope that they can resolve the issues with Ukraine in a way that recognizes Russian equities but upholds the basic principle of sovereignty and independence that the Ukrainian people should enjoy like everybody else. But until that time, we're going to continue to have tensions and we're going to continue to have differences. But we're not going to make Syria into a proxy war between the United States and Russia. That would be bad strategy on our part. This is a battle between Russia, Iran, and Assad against the overwhelming majority of the Syrian people. Our battle is with ISIL, and our battle is with the entire international community to resolve the conflict in a way that can end the bloodshed and end the refugee crisis, and allow people to be at home. Work, grow food, shelter their children, send those kids to school. That's the side we're on. This is not some superpower chessboard contest. And anybody who frames it in that way isn't paying very close attention to what's been happening on the chessboard. All right, last question. Major Garrett. Question, Mr. President, good to see you. President Obama, good to see you. Question, and for the children there, I promise I won't take too long. So you've been very patient. President Obama, I've been boring them to death, I guarantee it. But there have been times where I've snagged rebounds for Ryan when he is shooting three-pointers, so he has got to put up with this. Question, understood. Mr. President, I wonder if you could tell the country to what degree you were changed or moved by what you discussed in private with Pope Francis. What do you think his visit might have meant for the country long term? And for Democrats who might already be wondering. Is it too late for Joe Biden to decide whether or not to run for president? And lastly, just to clarify, to what degree did Hillary Clinton's endorsement just yesterday of a No-fly zone put her in a category of embracing a half-baked answer on Syria that borders on mumbo-jumbo? President Obama, on the latter issue, on the last question that you asked. Hillary Clinton is not half-baked in terms of her approach to these problems. She was obviously my Secretary of State. But I also think that there's a difference between running for president and being president. And the decisions that are being made and the discussions that I'm having with the Joint Chiefs become much more specific and require, I think, a different kind of judgment. And that's what I'll continue to apply as long as I'm here. And if and when she's president, then she'll make those judgments. And she's been there enough that she knows that these are tough calls, but that question, that she should know better? President Obama, no, that's not what I said. That's perhaps what you said. What I'm saying is that we all want to try to relieve the suffering in Syria. But my job is to make sure that whatever we do we are doing in a way that serves the national security interests of the American people. That doesn't lead to us getting into things that we can't get out of or that we cannot do effectively. And as much as possible, that we're working with international partners. And we're going to continue to explore things that we can do to protect people and to deal with the humanitarian situation there, and to provide a space in which we can bring about the kind of political transition that's going to be required to solve the problem. And I think Hillary Clinton would be the first to say that when you're sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in. In the Situation Room, things look a little bit different because she's been right there next to me. I love Joe Biden, and he's got his own decisions to make, and I'll leave it at that. And in the meantime, he's doing a great job as vice president. And has been really helpful on a whole bunch of issues. Pope Francis I love. He is a good man with a warm heart and a big moral imagination. And I think he had such an impact in his visit here as he has had around the world. Because he cares so deeply about the least of these, and in that sense expresses what I consider to be as a Christian, the essence of Christianity. And he's got a good sense of humor. And as I said in the introduction in the South Lawn when he appeared here at the White House, I think it's really useful that he makes us uncomfortable in his gentle way. That he's constantly prodding people's consciences and asking everybody all across the political spectrum what more you can do to be kind. And to be helpful, and to love, and to sacrifice, and to serve. And in that sense, I don't think he's somebody where we should be applying the typical American political measures, liberal and conservative, and left and right. I think he is speaking to all of our consciences. And we all have to then search ourselves to see if there are ways that we can do better. Question, inaudible. President Obama, it did. I think that when I spend time with somebody like the Pontiff and there are other individuals, some of whom are famous, some of whom are not, but who are good people and deeply moral, then it makes me want to be better, makes me want to do better. And those people are great gifts to the world. And sometimes they're just a teacher in a classroom. And sometimes they're your neighbor. And sometimes they're your mom, or your wife. Sometimes they're your kids. But they can encourage you to be better. That's what we're all trying to do. And that's part of the wonderful thing about Pope Francis, is the humility that he brings to do this. His rejection of the absolutism that says I'm 100% right and you're 100% wrong. But rather, we are all sinners and we are all children of God. That's a pretty good starting point for being better. All right. Thank you, guys, for your patience. You can now go home. Thanks. Barack Obama. Press conference on Affordable Care Act and Ukraine. Delivered April 17, 2014, White House, Washington, D. C. Hello, everybody. Before I begin, I just want to express on behalf of the American people our deepest condolences to the Republic of Korea and the families of all those who've seen their loved ones lost when a ferry sank within the last couple of days. Obviously, information is still coming in. We know that many of the victims of this terrible tragedy were students. and American Navy personnel and Marines have already been on the scene helping the search and rescue. As one of our closest allies, our commitment to South Korea is unwavering in good times and in bad. And that's something I'll underscore during my visit to Seoul next week. Before I take questions, I'd also like to say a few words about how the Affordable Care Act is. Now covering more people at less cost than most would have predicted just a few months ago. The first open enrollment period under this law ended a little over 2 weeks ago. And as more data comes in, we now know that the number of Americans who've signed up for private insurance in the marketplaces has grown to 8 million people. 8 million people. "35% of people who enrolled through the federal marketplace are under the age of 35. All told, independent experts now estimate that millions of Americans who were uninsured have gained coverage this year, with millions more to come next year and the year after. We've also seen signs that the Affordable Care Act is bringing economic security to more Americans. Before this law added new transparency and competition to the individual market. Folks who bought insurance on their own regularly saw double-digit increases in their premiums. That was the norm. And while we suspect that premiums will keep rising, as they have for decades, we also know that since the law took effect, healthcare spending has risen more slowly than at any time in the past 50 years. In the decade before the Affordable Care Act, employer-based insurance rose almost 8% a year. Last year, it grew at half that rate. Under this law, real Medicare costs per person have nearly stopped growing. The life of the Medicare Trust Fund has been extended by 10 years. And the Independent Congressional Budget Office now expects premiums for plans on the marketplace to be 15% lower than originally predicted.